Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. I want to jump on here and cover some notable news for the week of September 6th, and there's a lot going on. We will get right to it. But we've had a steady stream of political and big tech elites coming out saying that we should expect a delay in election results. And we had Mark Zuckerberg said, quote, "What we and other media need to start doing is preparing the American people that there is nothing illegitimate about this election taking additional days or weeks to make sure all the votes are counted." And then we had Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson said she's expecting the general election results to be delayed for multiple days this November as the state anticipates its highest voter turnout in history. So they want to use the excuse of high voter turnout and a lot of mail-in votes to support the delay in deciding an election victor. And that is actually illegitimate, and it's a little bit concerning, but we know that this is their plan to delay as long as they can. The more time that goes by, the more room that leaves for manipulation and voter fraud, something that we need to be praying against for either side. We want a fair and just election, and we should have the results within a day or two after election night. But we know this is their goal, and hopefully, they want to seed the public conscience with the idea and try to normalize it. And that's what they're doing right now. So, but we know it's not normal. We know it's not normal, and hopefully we'll have we know who won within a day or two after the election. But keep praying on that end. And then we have continual big tech censorship. They are taking their mask off. They have no pretense right now. We know that they are loyal to a certain political ideology. That's what controls these big tech media companies, and they're making it known. But they are constantly censoring conservatives and pro-Trump supporters. We had an article in Breitbart that came out from a Google and Twitter insider that said algorithms could censor the entire Trump movement simultaneously. So they're using cutting edge algorithms, cutting edge artificial intelligence to try and censor and silence certain influential voices for the other side. We had an article in the Wall Street Journal that said Facebook will prohibit new political advertisements in the week before the U.S. presidential election in November and seek to flag any candidates' premature claims of victory, Mark Zuckerberg said. So even if the election result is pretty cut and dry, social media companies are going to try and stall and prevent the public from accepting the fact. We have Twitter coming out deciding on a similar tact. They're going to be removing or labeling tweets intended to undermine the U.S. election. So we know these companies are controlled by a political ideology. They want to silence the other side and kind of remove our First Amendment, remove free discourse from taking place in the weeks coming up to the election, making sure that we think how they want us to think about these important issues. And this kind of sums it up, an article that was ran back in May that said Democrats are deploying a DARPA-funded, artificially intelligence-driven information warfare tool to target pro-Trump accounts. So again, the masks are off, weapons are drawn, all assets are deployed to influence this election. Moving on, we have Donald Trump. He banned critical race theory training against federal employees. This article describes it as such. President Trump has, in an executive cease and desist order, cut off taxpayer dollars to the funding of critical race theory and the racist white fragility indoctrination of federal employees. The order quite aptly describes these training sessions as seeking to undercut our core values as Americans and drive division within our workforce. So hopefully we can take this same measure and apply it to academics and education as well. But to the federal sector, it's a great first step to remove all training on critical race theory. Critical race theory came over from Germany in the early 1900s from the Frankfurt School. It's a poisonous Marxist philosophy that does nothing but drives a wedge between people, creates division. There's nothing edifying or unifying about it. And it just critiques, and it lives up to the name, critical theory, tries to upend the status quo in every way possible. And it is a very destructive philosophy. I'll let you do some research on your own, but great to see the president make this decision. And next, we have an ongoing effort by the media and the deep state to pit the military against the president. They know that the military is one of the president's greatest assets. There's fierce loyalty to the president throughout the military, especially within the rank and file folks, the soldiers. But there was an article in the Atlantic that came out that said Trump called Americans who died at wars losers and suckers. It was immediately debunked by dozens of eyewitnesses. Nonetheless, they ran it ubiquitously across the nation, even though it was all anonymous sources that they used. And then they had this book Bob Woodward released that blasted Trump, accusing him of calling top military generals pussies. Excuse my language there, but I don't see what the big deal is for that either. He's probably referring to some of these Obama-appointed generals who are more loyal to a political ideology and advancing a political agenda than defending their nation. That's probably who he directed that statement as. And if so, I wholeheartedly agree with him there. But, they want to pit the military and the president against each other. They want to create dissension. One of the reasons is because Donald isn't subservient to the military-industrial complex. I'll just read this quote here. He says, in White House remarks, Trump criticized his Democratic presidential candidate rival Biden as having sent our youth to fight in these crazy, endless wars, and said it's part of the reason senior Pentagon leaders may favor Biden over him. Trump said, it's one of the reasons the military, I'm not saying the military is in love with me, the soldiers are, the top people in the Pentagon probably aren't, because they want to do nothing but fight wars so that all of those wonderful companies that make the bombs and make the planes and make everything else stay happy. So he is calling out the military-industrial complex that profits off endless wars to their face. And he is not a puppet to their system. That's one of the reasons that they hate him so much and they want him out. Speaking of top military brass, some of which, who sit at the Pentagon. But we're going to just see more of that. Ultimately, the sinister agenda here is to drive a mutiny and justify a mutiny, saying that Trump is a danger to our democracy, so we should oust him. That's the ultimate goal here by creating that dissension between Trump and the military. But I don't want to go too far that rabbit hole, but that is the goal. So just be aware. Quick hit here, we had 26,000 coronavirus cases across universities that are open, but 0 hospitalizations or deaths. So more proof that this virus has very minor and mild effects on young people. We should open up schools. Elementary schools, middle, high schools, universities should be open. The only reason they're not open is because of politics, and it is really a shame. But that's an encouraging statistic right there. Next, we had Bob Woodward come out with his book I referenced just a minute ago. But I guess this guy, it's kind of tradition that he interviews past presidents and writes a book on it. So Trump, obliged, and the media is taking a remark that he made in the book where the president described the virus as deadly stuff, even as he publicly compared it to the seasonal flu. A month later, Trump admitted to Woodward that I still like playing the virus down because I don't want to create a panic. The media's taken this, running with it, trying to prove that Trump was being deceptive and he's incompetent and he was lying to the American people, where that's really not what he was saying at all. I don't see why this is a shocking remark at all. To the public, he was trying to not downplay the virus, but keep people calm and under control and not fearful of what's going on. which a good leader will do. Behind the scenes, he's making all the critical, important decisions. For instance, in January, we know that he stopped all travel from the source country, China, which was the most important single thing he could have done to stop the spread of the virus. A couple weeks later, he stopped travel from Europe as well. And the decision sparked accusations that Trump was a racist and he's xenophobic for halting all travel from China. Everyone was ridiculing Donald for his move, but you know, it was the most important move he could have possibly made. Had he not made that move, we would have had, it would have been exponentially worse, probably 10 times as many cases and deaths had he not stopped travel from China. So behind the scenes, he's working his butt off, making really hard decisions. Out in the public, he's trying to be a cheerleader and keep people in good spirits, which I think is what a good leader does. But the media ran with that, and I don't think people really buy it, but something to keep in mind. This article by the week I will put up here kind of describes how there's really nothing shocking about Bob Woodward's book. Really good, insightful article that you should read. And next we have all these fires going on out west. It's a terrible thing to see. Some of these images we're being shown are apocalyptic. It's scary. But there is a lot of fires going on out in Washington, Oregon, and California. The media wants to attribute these fires solely to climate change, and they're ignoring the real cause, which is a combination of failed state leadership and bad policies put in place, and also arson. A lot of the local news reporting is finding out that these fires are being deliberately set, especially in Oregon, through arson. But surprisingly, these are being totally ignored by national media. And then in states like California, historically over the last few years, just been bad policies. We have California's environmental movement and green energy mandates by progressive state leaders that shifted resources away from replacing 100-year-old power lines and focusing on wind and solar energy. So negligence and incompetence is really leading to the vast majority of these fires, which could have been prevented. But politics got in the way. So be praying for these people, for rescues and for safety, and that people are held accountable for this. It's really sad and frustrating to see. And then we had Donald Trump nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. This quote says, "Indeed, Trump has broken a 39-year-old streak of American presidents either starting a war or bringing the United States into an international armed conflict." So we've seen Donald throughout his presidency in just 3 years create peace deals in the Middle East, de-escalate volatility out in the Korean Peninsula, not going to war, taking out bad guys, Soleimani, for instance. It should be a no-brainer that Trump receives a Nobel Peace Prize. If any other president did what he did, it would be a no-brainer. They would be celebrating, they would be lauding him. But Trump derangement syndrome is very real. And then lastly, we have Bob Mueller. At least 30 phones used by members of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team had all of their data wiped before an official could check the devices for records, according to documents released on September 10th by the DOJ. So Mueller, the guy who led the Russia collusion investigation, his team wiped 30 phones that they were using. And that's pretty telling. We know there's been speculation Mueller's been a dirty cop and he was just put in place. This investigation was launched without any evidence, but it was really a tool to kind of inhibit the president's agenda, put a blockade between the president and the things he wanted to accomplish. And this just kind of corroborates that. You don't erase evidence unless you're trying to hide something. So what were these people trying to hide is the question. And I am going to leave you with that. God bless you guys. Have a great week, and we'll talk soon. Bye.